Good day, my name is Anam, and here I'm presenting Adultery and Kant's Imperative Kantian Test for Material Fidelity. In this slide, I will speak about Kantian moral foundations, rational, duty, moral law, and human dignity. So let's go a little bit deeper into that. Duty, law, and dignity. The moral worth, the duty, right action comes from respect of moral law, not from emotion or outcomes. Dignity and autonomy. Rational agents have intrinsic worth and must never be used merely as means. Universal consistency. A rule is moral only if it applies to everyone, basis on categorical imperative. So a little bit I'm going to a little bit expand on this one here. So Immanuel Kant's moral philosophy is grounded in the idea that morality must be based on reason rather than emotion, desire, or consequence. According to Kant, the action has a genuine moral worth only when it's performed out of duty, especially respect of the moral law. And also, if you look at this, it does distinguish Kantian's ethics of consequentialist theory, such as utilitarianism, which judges the action based on outcomes from one virtue, ethics, which emphasizes the character traits. On the other hand, Kant also argues that the emotions of personal inclinations are unreliable guides of morality because they vary between individuals and situations. So, I mean, there's no crystal clear yes or no in this one because it is different between the individuals. And now let's go into uh, let me just scale back just a little bit here. The other thing I'd like to quickly elaborate on is Kant's view on belief that all rational beings possesses intrinsic worth of dignities simply because they are capable of moral reasoning, and this as tools. This dignity means that human beings must always be respected and never treated merely as tools for achieving someone else's goals. And also, if you look at this here, Kant also emphasizes on anatomy the idea that rational agents are capable of giving moral law to themselves through a reason. And morality, therefore, is not imposed externally but arises from a rational self legislation. And another important aspect, Kantian ethics, is a moral consistency as well. You have to be consistent in your morals. So, in this slide, I will speak about categorical imperative. Three formulations as unified moral test. Three unified moral tests. Universal law. Will your maxim as universal rule, no contradiction. Humanity, treat persons as always as ends, dignity and agency. Kingdom of ends, as act as co-legislator in the community of equals. Together, consistency, respect, and reciprocity. Reciprocity guide duty over desire. For example, adultery. So I'm just going to go into a bit of a details here. So the categorical imperative is Kant's central moral principle and functions as a test of evaluating the morality of actions. Now, unlike hypothetical imperatives, which may imply only if one has a particular goal, the categorical imperative implies unconditionally to rational beings. So everyone basically deserves dignity, respect equally, regardless of who they are. And also, Kant represents several formulations of the categorical imperative, which he argues are different expressions of the same underlying moral law. The first is a formula of universal law, which instructs individuals to act only according to the maxims that they could or will to become universal laws. This formulation focuses on the logical consistency and asks whether the principle behind the action could be applied universally without any contradiction. Basically, in other words, as I already mentioned, um, treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their religion, race, color, background. The second formulation, the formula of humanity, emphasizes respect for persons. It requires that individual to treat humanity, whether themselves or others, always as an end and never as a means. This actually highlights the moral importance of dignity, informed consent, and respect for rational agency. The third formulation basically is the formula of kingdom of ends, asks individual as though they remember of an ideal moral community which all rational beings are both authors and subjects of moral law. And also, this formulation integrates universality and respect, emphasizing in reciprocity and shared moral legislation. Now, if you put these um, formulations together, it provides a comprehensive ethical framework. Actions must be consistent, respectful to human dignity, and compatible with a moral community based on trust and equality. Well, now, when we apply this to the real world ethical dilemmas such as adultery and categorical imperative offers a rigorous way to assess whether an action aligns with the rational moral rather than the personal desire or social convention. Now, let's look at adultery and universal moral law. Why adultery fails the universalization test? That's a very good question. Adultery fails universal law. Maxim breaks fidelity promises when personally desirable. Universalized trust collapse. The commitment becomes incoherent. The act depends on fidelity while destroying contradiction and conception. So it's nor morally impressionable, permissible under Kant's first formulation. Basically, in this slide, it is talking about commitments that would be jeopardized if adultery is committed, and and if we don't follow the moral law, a lot of connections will be and commitments will be broken, and it cannot be universalized because it'll create a social instability by weakening family structures and long term relationships which depend on a reliable commitment. From Kantian perspective, it is irrational to will a world which other remains faithful and one reserves the right to betray them. So if there's a couple, one is cheating, that breaks that law of trust and commitment towards the other, and sometimes the whole family is affected by it. And also, this inconsistency reveals the failure of moral reasoning. Therefore, adultery cannot pass the universalization test because it generates contradiction in conception. Respect for persons. Adultery and violation of human dignity. Now, when you're committing adultery, especially when you're in a committed relationship, the respect that you have for your spouse or your common law partner or sometimes other family members is lost. And basically, the formula of humanity evaluates the action based on whether they respect the dignity and autonomy of rational beings. Under the formula of individual never must never be treated merely as means to an end, but always as ends in themselves. It's basically you're putting your own respect on the line as well by committing adultery. And you don't respect your spouse, your common law partner, or how they feel, um, how they will be affected by your actions. Adultery and dignity. All right. Deception blocks informed consent. Partners' anatomy treats others as means, comfort, appearance, gratification rather than ends. Outcomes like happiness cannot justify violating human dignity, as I mentioned in the previous slides. It's basically you don't have no dignity if you're committing adultery. Um, you don't respect your partner when you're committing adultery. You don't care about how they would feel, how what process of psychological disruption they will go through once they found out that basically you're committing adultery and you're not fulfilling your commitment to the relationship. And now let's also talk about the moral community and reciprocity. Yeah. Now, adultery in the kingdom of ends. Adultery, the kingdom of ends, lawmakers test ask whether maxim permitting adultery could be willed as a universal law in a shared moral community, trust and cooperation, rule that permits betrayal erodes honesty, reliability, undermining the trust of required stable cooperation, and the reciprocity. Few would endorse the law allowing their own partners to betray them. Endorsing the adultery is morally inconsistent. As I've been saying, is basically it cannot be willed as a universal law because it will bring instability to the community, and if basically adultery by eroding trust reliability cannot be coherent integrated into a moral system designed to respect equal dignity and rational agency. Thus, under the kingdom of ends formulation, adultery is incompatible with the principle of necessary for just and morally coherent community. So we just can't, you know, break commitments, cheat on our spouses. It's just not morally viable. Overall ethical conclusions: why Kantian ethics condemns adultery. Kant on adultery universal law. If uncivilized, adultery undermines the practice of committed relationships and contradicts maxim ends. Humanity as an end typically involves deception, bypassing informed consent, and treating person as a mere means. And kingdom of ends, moral community requires trust, re- reciprocity, fidelity, follow as duty, ground, respect, and commitment. When all these formulations of Kant's categorical imperative are considered together, provide a consistent, rigorous condemnation of adultery, and the universal formulation shows that adultery cannot be universalized without contradiction, as it will destroy every institution of committed relationship. Humanity for formulation demonstrates that adultery treats individuals as mere means by evolving deception and denying informed consent. They are violating human dignity and anatomy. The kingdom of ends formulation enforces these conclusions by highlighting the importance of trust, reciprocity, and shared moral legislation within a moral community, while Kantian ethics does not focus on consequences. The consequences show social and emotional harm associated with adultery further illustrates why such actions are incompatible with moral duty. Thank you so much, and you have a great day there.